Hello everyone, welcome. You're watching Next IAS English. Today we are going to discuss one of the most important and debated issues in recent times, the Waqf Amendment Act 2025 and the Supreme Court's interim order on it. ये सिर्फ एक लीगल या कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल मैटर नहीं है, बल्कि इसका डायरेक्टली असर गवर्नेंस, कम्युनिटीज़ और सोसाइटी पे पड़ता है। तो चलिए स्टेप बाय स्टेप समझते हैं कि आखिर ये वक्फ होता क्या है, इसकी हिस्ट्री क्या है, डेटा और फैक्ट्स क्या कहते हैं और नए अमेंडमेंट्स के क्या इम्प्लीकेशंस हो सकते हैं। So, सबसे पहले let's talk about today's Supreme Court's hearing. Today on September 15, 2025, the Supreme Court delivered an interim order while hearing petitions challenging the constitutional validity on the Waqf Amendment Act 2025. Now, the bench of Chief Justice B.R. Gavai and Justice Augustine George Massey held that the act as a whole will not be stayed, meaning it continues to operate. However, certain provisions were frozen, such as the rule that only a Muslim practicing Islam for 5 years can create a waqf, and the restriction that no more than 3 non-Muslims can be on Waqf Board and Council. This is not a final verdict, only a temporary measure that has been taken. For many Muslim groups, this provided some relief, while the government maintains that the central purpose of the act is transparency as well as accountability, and it remains intact. Now, let's talk about what is waqf, क्या है waqf. To understand the controversy, we first need to know कि waqf आखिर है क्या. Waqf is an old Islamic charitable institution where a person permanently dedicates property, land, buildings or money in the name of Allah for the benefit of the society. Once declared as waqf, the property cannot be sold, gifted or inherited. Instead, its income must be used for community welfare such as building mosques, running schools and madrasas, setting up hospitals or providing scholarship for poor children. It is a tradition that dates back 1400 years and plays a very significant role in Muslim society, especially in a country like India with over 200 million Muslims. Now let's talk about the role of Waqf Boards. In India, Waqf properties are managed through statutory bodies called Waqf Boards. These are 32 such boards across states and union territories, supervised by Central Waqf Council under the Ministry of Minority Affairs. Their duties include conducting surveys of Waqf land, registering properties and collecting rent, preventing encroachments and ensuring that the income actually reaches the intended beneficiaries. Now let's talk about the history of Waqf. The history in India stretches back to Delhi Sultanate in 12th century, expanded further under the Mughals and then became more formalized during the British era with laws like Musalman Waqf Act 1923. After independence, the Waqf Act of 1954 created the Central Waqf Council. Major reforms came in 1995, introducing Waqf tribunals and compulsory surveys. In 2013, amendment allowed even non-Muslims to contribute and strengthen anti-encroachment measures. Over time, Waqf has become a highly regulated but also highly contested system. Now let's look at some facts and data, and Waqf assets also. As per official data, India has around 8.72 lakh registered Waqf properties spread over 9.4 to even 39 lakh acres according to different reports. This makes Waqf the third largest landowner in country after the railways and defense. The estimated market values is 1.2 lakh crore. However, the shocking part is that the annual income from all these assets is just about 163 crore, whereas experts estimate that a potential of 12,000 crore per year. Around 58,000 properties are under encroachment, including thousands of government lands wrongly recorded as Waqf. Over 1 lakh cases remain pending in courts. Clearly, the gap between potential and actual utilization is massive. Now let's talk about the 2025 amendment. The Waqf Amendment Act 2025, introduced in Parliament in August 2024 and passed in April 2025, seeks to address these issues. It has 44 reform clauses. Key changes include narrowing the definition of Waqf so that only practicing Muslim of 5 years could create it, though this has been stayed by the Supreme Court now, ending the controversial practice of Waqf by user, restructuring boards to include non-Muslims and women members, allowing non-Muslims to be CEOs, shifting survey responsibility to district collectors, and mandating online registration and central audits. The law also prioritizes women for caretaker roles, penalizes false claims and aims to digitalize and modernize Waqf records also. Now let's talk about what are the objectives. The government argues that these changes are necessary to curb mismanagement and corruption with nearly 12,000 crore of potential annual income. Unlocking Waqf resources could fund schools, hospitals and welfare programs. Empowering collectors to survey and recover land is seen as a way to deal with the 58,000 encroachments. Digitalization, audits and women's representation are framed as progressive steps to modernize the institution. But there are criticisms as well. The law has faced stiff resistance. Muslim groups and leaders argue that the amendments violate Article 26 of the Constitution, which guarantees the right to manage religious affairs. They point out that no similar intervention exists for Hindu or Christian religious trust. So making non-Muslim participation mandatory in Waqf Board is discriminatory. Critics also fear that this is an attempt by the state to gain excessive control over Muslim institutions, undermining community autonomy also. Protests erupted nationwide, leading to multiple petitions before the Supreme Court. Now, let's talk about the current status. As things stand, the Act is operational but with selective provisions frozen by the court. The implementation process, including board restructuring and digitalization, has already begun. The debate remains unresolved. Will this law truly brings transparency and welfare, or will it erode trust and autonomy? The Supreme Court's final judgment will be decisive. Now let's talk about the conclusion. To conclude, Waqf in India is not just a religious institution but one of the largest community-owned assets in the world. If managed effectively, it could transform education, healthcare and welfare for millions of people. The 2025 reforms are an attempt to unlock this potential but raise deep questions about constitutional rights and community autonomy also. The balance between transparency and religious freedom will define the future of Waqf. With that, we come to an end of this lecture, and that's it for today. Thank you for listening and keep preparing smartly. I'll see you again in another video. Until then, bye-bye. Take care.